of apple from the apple of my eye, and I can't talk loudly, but you're gonna love what I have to tell you. That is because this is part of the strategy, and we have to really put our heads together and read the Word of God. So, anyway, I don't want to make this too long, but I'm gonna have people take a look at Project Argus back in 1958 and Starfish Prime back in 1962. And the Lord is putting in my heart about this firmament. It is in Genesis, I think it's Genesis 1 6. So if you were to look at all the verses of the Bible about the firmament, okay, in the newer versions of the Bible, it would actually say that we have an expanse. And they wanted to do away with the earth having any dome, as if heavens has flooded the entire earth. And there is now no longer a calvarium protecting the earth itself. And the concept there is that we are living on the crust. Okay, so of course there's kind of the air around the earth, and we're living on the crust, and the water is stuck on that circle, which obviously we don't observe in real life. We don't, I mean, unless you've got a water balloon. Okay, so anyhow, it doesn't matter to me whether you believe that the earth is a spherical ball and that you live where the water is stuck to the crust, or you believe that the earth is like an eyeball. I believe that the earth is like an eyeball, and there is a breakage. If you look at the iris of the eye, the eyeball is round, okay, but there is a face to it, whereas the globe does not have a face to it. Regardless of whether you're going to believe that or not, the Bible talks about a firmament. And if you look at how this firmament is, it is mentioned 15 times in King James Version. The Bible refers to the expanse of the heavens above the earth. Okay, but in the story of the creation as found in Genesis, God formed firmament to divide waters above the earth with waters below the earth. There's real water. Okay, so anyhow, going back, I want you to do a research on Van Allen belts. Van Allen belts. Okay, and it says here that, because I put the question, bombing the Van Allen belt. And it says, yes, nuclear bombs have been detonated in the Van Allen belts, specifically in Project Argus 1958 and Starfish Prime 1962 test. The goal was to test whether the radiation belts could be artificially expanded to act as a defense against incoming missiles. However, the explosions unexpectedly created an artificial radiation belts that damaged and destroyed satellites in orbit, leading to a change in the Cold War policy and greater understanding of space radiation. Inferencing on this statement, because I am very skeptical. So they actually admitted that they bombed it. Let me just reiterate, as I've said before, we're dealing with three major confusing elements, and they are global. They are Islamism, communism, and the New World Order. New World Order is involved in CERN, and the only odd man out is actually Israel, is in the CERN. It is almost like a United Nations in there, by the way. It even included the Philippines, as if we have all that money to pour for this thing. CERN is in between France and Geneva. It's between France and Switzerland. Switzerland is developed by the Crusaders. It is composed of four different factions of Crusaders: the Germans, I think it's the Romani, the French, and the Italians. They have what you call the Sion. We already know that in the inception and the building of the CERN, it is to study how nuclear bombs explode. They wanted to go faster than the speed of light. Speed of light. It's to break things, and they wanted to create an antimatter. It's basically you can zap things out of existence, and they consider that it could do some kind of a time travel. I highly doubt a lot of these things. I think that's what they're hoping for. That's how they wanted to present it, make it look enigmatic. But frankly speaking, that is just a way to entice everybody. It is a totally demoniac thing. I do not think that whoever decided to develop the CERN has goodwill in their hearts, because they made it very clear with all their parading, and they had paraded themselves like the greatest heathen of all times. You know what they did there. It had a horrible vibe. They were dressed in workers' clothing, construction workers' clothing, started ripping their clothes and started dancing as if they are in the Aboriginals, like an Aborigine style dancing. Very demonically spirited. So it is also being negated. Oh, you cannot bomb. It is illegal. You cannot be bombing the Van Allen belt. If you have to bomb something, then it is not, this is a solid, they are trying to hit something solid. They were trying to hit it in order for the rockets to make it all the way out, the outer space. They were breaking this Van Allen belt. Now, the goal is to test the Christophilus effect, which posited that the nuclear explosions in space could create a temporary artificial radiation belt to disable enemy missiles. So, if you wanted to disable enemy missiles, they can detonate. Several low-yield nuclear bombs were detonated at high altitudes. The test temporarily increased the electron content in the belts, as predicted, but were discontinued due to treaties and fear of long-term damage. They were doing some crazy experiments, and it wasn't it didn't give them what they wanted. Another Starfish Prime, 1962. Now, around the 1960s is where we're doing all this crazy thing, trying to get to the moon and all this crazy stuff. And then all of a sudden, we're not going to go to the moon anymore. Maybe it's futile. Now we're going to make everybody believe we're making it to Mars and there's life in Mars. Who cares? We can't even figure out. I mean, our Earth is so filled with water and it's livable. And why are we going to go to Mars anyway? Send the scientists over to Mars. Change in policy, the U.S. Okay, so this one says Starfish Prime to test whether a nuclear explosion in low Earth orbit could augment the Van Allen belts to create a barrier against the Soviet missiles. Okay. Do you see how this is not going to be left alone? Method A 1.4 megaton nuclear bomb was detonated. What the heck is a 1.4 megaton, mega and a ton nuclear bomb was detonated at an altitude of about 250 miles? You cannot be exploding something in thin air. They are trying to hit something solid. No doubt. It is apparently very difficult to get through this thing. Okay, so do we have a firmament? Okay, how true is the Bible? The Bible predicted the New World Order, and we've got the New World Order. So let's take a look at this. Change in policy, the U.S. military began working on ways to counter the effects of space-based nuclear detonation, and many countries later signed Partial Test Ban Treaty 1963, which prohibits nuclear weapons tests in space. So we're now testing it underground. Is that what we're doing? A lot of shaking can happen when you do, for example, in the Philippines, it is a highly tectonic, it is a very volatile land. most of our volcanoes are practically active. The reason we see islands there is that they are spewed out and created by the volcanoes. Now, you start doing all of this detonation there, it's going to cause a massive earthquake that could affect the world. Because it's an archipelago, and that shaking, the volcano, the we had Mount Pinatubo. That Mount Pinatubo literally polluted the air. So if things are getting polluted, okay, that means it's just not coming out, right? So how hard could the atmosphere be if we have to detonate it and that there is a Van Allen belt? They admitted there is a Van Allen belt and it appears to be firm. So it looks like it did not go through it, but it screwed up all of the satellites. So if you are dealing with any countries that have high surveillance and they're supposed to do it in orbit, okay, you can knock it out. It can be knocked out. That's basically what this is inferencing from this. So, what does the Bible say about the Bible firmament? And by the way, most of the satellites for our phone is on the ground. It is not up in the air. It is on the ground. Okay. We're not putting things in orbit. Okay. I think it's kind of it's too far. It's not going to do the effect that you really want when you have it there. But there are things for surveillance that they needed to have it up in the air. But then there's a northern star that they say stays in one spot, and it proves that the earth cannot be running around. Think about, okay, if you spin something, the earth is spinning, how much spinning the earth does. They say that it takes about 606 or 666 days to get to the sun, about 25 days, okay. The Earth completes one full rotation approximately 24 hours, but its speed varies by location. At the equator, the speed is about 1,038 miles per hour, while at the poles, the speed is virtually zero. Okay, the Philippines is on the equatorial line, and we're spinning, right? So that means that the Philippines is running about 1,038 miles per hour. So how are we able to see the constellation in a fixed position? That's the question. Then the Filipinos had to be saying boom, 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 because we're out. Okay, we're in the equatorial line. We're not at the pole. So this does not add up. This is not adding up. I feel like we're all being gaslighted by scientific evidence, quote unquote. But I can believe that the Van Allen detonation was being performed. Now take a look at the equator. So, is the firmament real? So let's take a look. Bible verses. Put Bible verses, and what does the Bible say about the firmament? 168. They want to call it the expanse to kind of turn it into this kind of like a gaseous encapsulating thing. I don't think so. I think we do have something hard there. And Genesis 1 6 to 8, and God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the water, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made, I think God wanted us to know that there's water from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. God called the firmament heavens. Psalms. The heavens declare the Lord of God, the glory of God, and the firmament show it his handiwork. Can you let him spread out the skies hard as a cast metal mirror? That's Job 37:18. So why are we detonating the Van Allen belt? Isaiah 40:22. It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heaven like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to dwell in. So you have something like a tent. If you think about a dome shaped thing, and it can be a circle, just like an eyeball, but there is a front to the eyes, there is the face to the eyeball, okay? And there's a connection at the back with the nerves. So, Revelation, and before the throne there was a sea of glass like crystal. So, Genesis and Revelation are the two most dangerous books that is totally hated by Satan, okay? Because it shows his downfall and his eternal punishment. And he's trying to drag all human beings with him. So here is the thing: if you look at all this thing and the extent of which the United Nations goes against Israel to just even pray at the Temple Mount, it is mind-boggling. It is totally mind-boggling, and it's totally mind-boggling that they're setting up indoctrinated people in Gaza. These are not the same as the Philistines back then. They're not in the same bloodline. It's like saying that the Philippines are Filipinos, okay? Filipinos are not Philippians, and I totally do not believe that we are the Ophir from the land of Ophir. Filipinos originally are like the Aborigines of Australia, but they are short. They're the pygmies, okay? So they were not traveling, okay, during the biblical times, the way it's being put in that scripture. So, land of Ophir is not the Philippines, okay? I would hate to disappoint anyone, but I personally just don't sense that it would be. And nowadays they're calling us a Danubian. Who cares? I don't need to be connected to a bunch of, like sideline Neanderthals and making me feel good about who I am. My identity is in Christ. So, anyhow, this between the horoscopes and the scientific community that hides all kinds of secrets, I would rather be reading the Bible. Because the Bible, what it predicts is that no Saudi Arabia, no Turkey, no no Arabs can really rebuild Gaza at this point. They're trying to make it that way, and the 20-point plan is not working. And, Donald Trump can just do all the acting he wants. He already knew that's not going to work. If anybody could ever tell him what's in all the prophecies of the major and minor prophets, he already knew that that is a flop. But we're thankful we got the hostages. That's the most successful thing there. And the fact that they can't give the people, there will be a continued decimation of the Arab League, a complete decimation of the Communist Party, and already the internet is blowing up against, okay, because you got to realize there are Jews working for the CERN. What they don't want to put the Jews in is Antarctica. And what is in Antarctica? Why in the world are so many of these United Nations obsessing over icicles? I mean, do they just want popsicles so badly? What the heck are they doing? Putting such heavy surveillance on Antarctica. I've never been there, but I've known people who had been there. And they said, you cannot get on a boat on your own. You will be you will be sent back by the military. There will be people in uniform. The moment you just, veer off a little bit off the path of your tourism, no airplane goes through it. Now they say that they can kind of go in, but they really don't go from, you cannot hop from Africa all the way to South America, even though it should be the closest. It's impossible. So I don't expect people to believe. I mean, I just find it hard to believe that the South is the outskirt of the earth. But why is Israel in the Middle East the middle? What makes it middle? Okay. What's furthest out? Okay, so if Antarctica is being represented poorly, if it's being, if we are, is there a possibility that we are being indoctrinated by the globe? I love the globe. I played with the globe. The globe is my volleyball. My dad gave me a volleyball globe. I I wanted maps, world maps and globes. That was my thing growing up. So it's not because I think that this is not real. I believed it, but I started to question because engineers do not factor in. They do not factor in nautical miles when they're making pavements for a long stretch. They just don't bother. And they said, well, it's parallel. Okay. You can say parallel all you want. If you take the plane, I don't see it in curvature. It's not in curvature. It actually looks kind of like this. And when you do a suspension of a bridge, that's just because there's a dipping. It actually dips, and so you have to do it in a certain way so it has more of an arch. So you will build it differently. But when they have one laser, if you have a laser going from a stretch of, let's say, I don't know how many miles, let's say 50 miles, they can have it on a straight line from one island to the next island. So why is it that experimentally it is not as observable? And why is it that the plane goes straight and steady? They have to be dipping in slightly all the time, and they don't do that. Aviations do not teach pilots to slightly dip their nose to follow the curvature of the earth. They are going really fast. Anytime you are further, this here, if there's something below, okay, so you are in a higher elevation on a crust and you're going, then you have to change your speed depending on the spinning of the earth. So anyhow, again, you can say that this is dumb, and maybe because I don't work for NASA, but I also know that NASA is dwindling down. They have some of the oldest people in there now. They don't really want to recruit anybody younger. They're making justification that they can't go to the moon, and why? They should be able to go there every weekend at this point. But they're bragging about going to Mars and how all this stuff. It doesn't add up. So we are in a bubble of severe indoctrination, not any different from how you would see so many people believing that they can be a woman when they're a man, even though we know full well that the DNA of a man or a woman is constant. It's going to be XX or XY. You don't even have to see me. You can take a piece of my skin and swab my mouth and find out that I'm actually a female or somebody's actually a male. You can look at the pelvis of a person anatomically and figure out that this is a female person or a male person. It don't matter how much hormones you put. Okay, so the gaslighting of humans is just so severe that you've got to take a look at this. And Israel is not part of the United Nations in the Antarctic regions. And why not? Okay, they prohibit them from being in Temple Mount. And surprisingly, they make it to the CERN. And I'm pretty sure they don't want them nosying up anywhere. Now, there's also bodies that was given back after a couple of Israeli took their pictures in Antarctica. And I bet you, for the United Nations to have seen that, that would have freaked the heck out of them. Send, I would say, if Israel sends a detail over to the Antarctic region, that would freak the heck out of the United Nations. Because there is nothing more mythical than people thinking that the Bible, when if the people are so scientifically minded and they start to see firmament in the Bible and their concept is we only have atmosphere, what is this talking about? And there's actually, if, and they were all, imagine if we were training all of the kids to know that there is a Van Allen valve and it was detonated. Okay, by the time they get to sixth grade, we can tell them, oh, it was detonated. Don't you think the kids will be wondering why? Don't you think that people would be wondering why? So anyway, I'm going to tell you this story. Okay, sideline. I'm going to give you two stories because the Lord is putting this in my heart in terms of the people who are so brokenhearted because they've lost their loved ones during the October 7 attack. I lost my dad at 19, and I tried to be strong. I really barely wanted to cry, and I was, in a sense, I had to be there where they pulled the plug for my dad, and I had to watch him literally suffocate. It was so traumatizing that to this day, you can't make me watch a horror movie. My dad turned into, he looked like a Frankenstein. He had a cut on his head because of an aneurysm, and we kept getting, we kept getting approached by the doctors that we need to unplug my dad, that he is actually brain dead. Well, apparently they were after his kidneys. Now, my dad is an electrician. He studied electrical engineering. He had dyslexia, but he almost made it to graduate, and he worked as an electrician, and he was a foreman in Saudi Arabia. My dad loved me. And during that time, we had to, by the time my aunts came, my two aunts came from Israel, and my uncle came, and my aunt, who's a doctor, came. And they all decided, okay, let's have him unplugged because that's what everybody is suggesting because his brain is not, he's not going to be a normal person. So, anyhow, I don't understand what this is all about, but I have to go with the flow. I was a 19-year-old girl. Needless to say, my dad, we had to pull the plug on him, and I watched him. He turned, it looked like a scene straight out of the Darth Vader. Okay. He turned purple. He looked like an Incredible Hulk. He just turned purple and green. It was so horrible. And his entire body was convulsing because when they unplugged him, the morphine didn't work for his body yet. He just could not breathe. So anyway, I tried to say that, okay, this is what we had to do medically. We basically euthanized our dad. That's what it felt like. I mean, I understand that this was a necessity, but it felt like that. It felt like I killed my own dad, just like in Luke Skywalker. Anyhow, and Darth Vader, he looked like it. He looked like it. Okay, he was having difficulty breathing, and he stopped breathing and just turned purple and green. So I was I cried, but then when it came down to several weeks, I held myself together. And I went to a wedding. It was a Filipino wedding at a hotel. And when the bride was being given away, that's when I started crying. And I was like, my dad cannot walk me in the aisle. Well, you definitely couldn't. Not even my mother could because at this age, I'm single. But anyhow, At that very moment, the Lord spoke in my heart, and this is what He said: I saw you running after your dad. Now I want you to run after me. So, lesson to the story is, okay, as many people grieving over the loss of their loved one on October 7 and all the horrible things that has happened to them, the Lord knows your heart is grieving, but He also wants you to know that you need to run after Him. We need to run after the Father in heaven. And that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, being told by the Lord to run after Him. And my dad did introduce me to the Father in heaven. That I have a Father in heaven. I don't just have Him as my Father. I have a Father in heaven. In fact, I also have an uncle who acts like my father. And I'm very blessed in that regard. Now, another story I'm going to tell you is that there was this, there's a vessel. So let's say a submarine. And the submarine is going in one direction. And the private says, Captain, there appears to be another submarine. There is another vessel in front of us, and we're going to go in a collision. So the captain says, well, then get on the phone and tell that other person on the other side that we are headed in their direction, that they need to move 60 degrees or 45 degrees northeast. Okay? So the private got on the phone and said, this is Private so-and-so. We are headed straight. You need to move your vessel. You need to move 45 degree northeast. And the person on the other side says, this is Private Brown. You need to move your vessel 45 degrees northeast. And so the private went to the captain, and the sergeant says, well, let me get on the phone. So the sergeant spoke to the private on the other side and says, this is Sergeant so-and-so. I need you to move your vehicle. I need you to move 60 degrees northeast. And the Private Brown got back to them and said, this is Private Brown. You need to move 60 degrees northeast. So finally the captain got on the phone. This is Captain so-and-so, and this is for the third time I told you need to move about 60 degrees northeast. And the private answered back and says, this is Private Brown. And for the third time, I'm letting you know you need to move 60 degrees northeast. I'm a lighthouse. So anyway, the point there, I don't know exactly, I couldn't remember exactly the entire lingo of it, but I was laughing so hard when I read this. And it was written down in one of the magazines. So here's the thing. The United Nations is like this vessel that they think they're all that. But we're not going to be able to move Israel where it stands in this timeline. We're not going to be able to move it. They can try as hard as they could and get everybody to sign in. It's not going to be powerful enough because Israel is the lighthouse. We can't break it. It's kind of like the firmament. Yeah, you can bomb it all you want until you give up. Break every satellite you can. You can try to bomb the world at CERN and try to fool everybody that you have a time travel and how great this is, and we're discovering something. I mean, people can be so stupid, we can be so stupid, so smart and stupid. That's what people are. We're sheeples, and the war literally got set off because of heifers. We have heifers, and over this thing is this craziness going on. And we need to admit that we don't know everything. We don't know everything. And we have the Bible. And we can doubt and toss it out, throw it in the garbage if we wanted to. But that Bible is real. And here's the thing, Israel is real, eyes real. Eyes. How real is our eyes? You see, the eyeball is a ball, right? But there's a front to it. What if the world is like an eyeball? Maybe it is, yeah, it is circular, okay? But is it really the way it's being shown to us? Because if you look at the eyeball, I mean, even on a cadaver, you can hold it. You can hold an eyeball, okay? It's a spear. But I don't understand how we could possibly be okay if there is no outer shell. It's like if our brain does not have a skull, I don't think I think it's gonna be damaged before we turn two. Okay. So anyway, I don't expect people to want to believe this flat earth concept. It's not really a flat earth concept, it's an eyeball concept. Is the earth an eyeball? That's the question. And is it possible for the scientific community to make a fool out of everybody on planet Earth? Are they able to fool all of us with social engineering? And why are we obsessing over Candace Owens and Erica Kirk? Okay, they need to drop all these things. I mean, it's obvious to me that Candace Owens does not know prophecy. And then Erica Kirk is potentially a witch. Okay, I don't know. There's just no way I would want to grieve for my husband and wear two gigantic, uncomfortable ring with a G and M and flip my finger the way most of the Illuminatus do. It does not signify I love you in American Sign Language. She would have just said it. This is American Sign Language, and this is how I tell my husband that I love him. Okay, that's all she has to say. But why would you have those rings that are so gigantic and it's just like what the Masonics wear? It is exactly like it. Okay, in different times of my life, I've met people who didn't mind letting me know that they are part of a Masonic and they had those rings. So what the heck is she doing wearing that? Did she get so much money from them? Okay, another questionable thing, and this may just be a foreshadowing of the Antichrist. I don't understand Jared Kushner and the 666 building that he's trying so hard to, was it 1.8 billion and to renovate? I don't know what the heck. He got 2.6 billion, and I don't know why he had so much power to gather up. He's not totally fitting the Antichrist yet because he's not really stopping anything yet. But he did get, he is pivotal to that whole Abraham Accord 2.0. I don't know what maybe there's still more going on. So I don't know if he would qualify for the Antichrist because that would make Ivanka not a woman. Okay, but anyhow, this is all like crazy things happening nowadays, but I know for a fact that the 20 point, besides, I'm glad the hostages, most of the live hostages are back, but while the hostages that have passed away are not yet returned, there will be a continued, and maybe they could never be found anymore, but still, there will be a continued decimation of the Communist Party, of the New World Order, and of Islamism. Okay, we need to make jihadism illegal. That's just as simple as that. Anyway, thank you and God bless.